Hello, welcome everyone to the DCR Out Loud. That's our new name. And my name is McKinney, and I'm the Public Outreach Director in the Division of Cannabis Regulation, and I'm here with my co-host, Shayna. Hey, Shayna.
Hello, happy to be here. Happy to be DCR Out Loud. I'm Shayna Arndt. I'm the Deputy Director for Patient and Application Services, and as always, the enthusiastic co-host.
That's right. We took a little time away to assess our pilot and reset our branding. This podcast was originally started as a pilot, and it was a 3-episode pilot project. And we wanted to do that to make sure that it was valuable content, that we had enough content. I think we figured out that we do.
I think so. And it was nice to be able to pause and look back at our pilot to just determine if we needed it. And it turns out we do. We think we found out pretty quickly we have more than enough content to continue. And some other questions we had and things we were working on took a little bit of time to figure out. Neither of us had done a podcast before. So all in all, I'd say it's been an enjoyable learning curve.
Yeah, I've definitely missed doing this the last few months. And we definitely decided that we should keep going. We received a lot of positive feedback from the public and our licensees. And so, as you can see, we have a new name, a new cover photo, and we went and got a little fancier.
That's what we do.
So welcome back, everyone, to Season 1. We're actually calling it a season.
I love that.
So professional.
Officially, Season 1.
We will be here monthly with all the latest Division of Cannabis Regulation info. Excited to announce that Amy Moore will be here every other month as my co-host.
Which is super exciting. So also wanted to say welcome back. We hope you all have had a great summer. It has been strange not getting together in the podcast lab and, talking about the things that are so important to us and regulation and sharing news. So really excited to get back at it and get this season started. We're going to continue to have information that serves everyone, patients, consumers, licensees, general public, and we're still going to have the famous No Zone with Lindsey. There's lots more to know.
That's right. So what do we have going on today, Shayna?
We have an interview with a surprise blast from the past.
Ooh.
Yes. And of course, Amy Moore. In the No Zone, we're going to talk about metric, and then we'll close out with some reminders.
All right, let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Special guest. Can't wait to see what that's all about. So, Shayna, what is the surprise guest? You got to fill me in. I can't wait any longer.
Okay. The secret's been eating at me anyway. Today, we are going to hear from the previous director of the medical marijuana program, Lyndall Fraker. Yes.
Yay.
He and Amy are going to have an interview. We won't give too many details now if you're unfamiliar with who Lyndall is. We'll let Amy introduce him, but this is very exciting. True blast from the past.
Absolutely. Here we go.
All right.
Lyndall Fraker, big surprise guest. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So Lyndall Fraker, former director of the cannabis program, the first director of Missouri's cannabis program, and still the only medical marijuana program director. How do you feel about that? Are you famous?
Well, I feel more infamous than famous, to be honest with you, especially back in those days.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. So you and I get to catch up quite a lot, but I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who wish they had that opportunity. And so here we are. That's why you're here. Let's catch up.
Well, flattery will definitely get you anywhere with me for sure. Well, that's great, Amy. I really do appreciate when you called and invited me up. I'm a former legislator and the former director of the program. And, sometimes when you've been up here in the arena, I was for 12 years, and you go home, it's great, but you are sort of forgotten about or left out, or you don't feel like you're really engaged like you were when you were here. So anytime I can reconnect with former associates and former legislative colleagues and so forth, it's always a lot of fun. I'm a history guy anyway. I love history, as you know, and so it's good to reminisce about the good days, and maybe sometimes a day that wasn't so good. We could at least laugh about it.
Yeah. Well, you may be mostly gone, but definitely not forgotten, as I think you experienced today when you showed up and there was much excitement from many. So
Well, you're too kind.
It's
sure.
good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
So maybe we should back up a little bit for the people who may not know you. Can you tell us a bit about your history, how you ended up in the medical marijuana program? So is this what you filled in on those elementary school papers? I want to grow up to be the marijuana program director.
You mean after astronaut and
Yeah.
President of the United States, or no, Major League Baseball player?
Okay.
Sure. I'll try to go down that path here for you. So, I was elected to the House of Representatives here in Missouri in 2010, and spent 8 years over in the House, and it was quite an experience. It was a great experience for a kid from Webster County, Missouri, and of course my prior career had been 17 years with Walmart in management. The last 7 as the manager of my hometown store, which kind of had been my goal when I started with Walmart back in the 80s. I had a great time there, but by the early 2000s, I was getting tired of being in the Walmart store from 6:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night some days, and I was at that point in life I wanted to do something different. So I started building. I love building homes and doing all kinds of construction work, and I did that full time, and that was wonderful until the Great Recession, the Great Crash of 2008, and as you know, everything shut down. Economically, certainly in the industry. And so that's when I decided to run for county commissioner. And I served in that capacity 2 years there in Webster County. And then in 2010, ran for the state house and won that. And spent 8 years, as I mentioned, in the House. It was a great run, met a lot of great people, learned a lot about our state and about our government. And so when my time was coming to an end there, since we have term limits after 8 years, to go ahead and run in the Senate or something wasn't in the cards. The timing wasn't right. We didn't have that option then with the way the terms were. So I had talked to some folks here in the government about a job and staying engaged, and Dr. Williams, Dr. Randall Williams, the director of health, actually gave me a call one day and said, "Hey, as you know, Amendment 2 passed. And this was probably first week of December, and the amendment had passed in November with that election of 2018." And he said, "We're looking for a director." And he said, "Your name had been given to me as someone that they felt like would be the kind of person we should have to help initiate this program." And of course, my jaw about dropped. Obviously, as most people that know me knew, I was not the kind of a guy that ever, partook of marijuana, didn't know anything about marijuana much other than what it smelled like. So my question was, well, why me? I'm not a marijuana guy. And he said, "That's the reason we want you, because you have other qualities that I guess in their eyes thought would be the right kind of would be the right person." So took that call, and then certainly came up and interviewed with Dr. Williams, and then the rest is history. By about 3 weeks later, you and I showed up on the same day at knocking on his door and on the top floor of the building down the street.
Mm-hmm. That's such a big decision to make so quickly. How did you get sure about it?
You're exactly right. It was a big decision, and it was something that certainly was, I guess, for lack of better words, it was kind of a God thing. I mean, certainly a lot of prayer, a lot of thought, a lot of discussion with people around me, mentors, people that I respected, people like Colonel Ronnie Replogle, who Ron was the colonel of the Highway Patrol at the time, and I grew up with in Marshfield. He was a year behind me in school. I roomed with his brother in college. I mean, we close family ties, and I talked with Ron, and I talked with Senator Cunningham at the time, Representative Cunningham. People like John Black, Representative John Black, that is now our representative in the House, who was my best friend probably at the time, and just people that I really respected, and the stigma that might come being connected to marijuana certainly was there, but yet on the other hand, I kind of looked at it like Ron was in the Highway Patrol. You've got to have people that can regulate and keep an eye on it and make sure the program does what it's supposed to do per the Constitution, and quite frankly, to honor the will of the governor and the executive branch of the government that had to oversee this, to make sure this was implemented properly. So through all those discussions, and and of course, obviously the number one decision maker there was my wife, Melanie. And after talking with her, I think when I first mentioned it to her, I knew whatever her reaction would lead me down the path that I would go. And her reaction initially was, that is, what an honor. That's really cool that they think that you could do this. Well, that stroked my ego a little bit, let's face it. And so, as we talked about it, we both agreed that let's do this. Let's try this. Let's do what's right for Missouri. And that might be my 15 minutes of fame or whatever, and to put together something that's never been done, that had a stigma to it, that was still federally illegal. And what if we could do this right? It might be okay. So that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, let's talk more about that. What was it like leading the medical marijuana program implementation? You had so much going on. It's everything from administration and logistics to policy and values. That's a lot to juggle. It's unique. It's a unique experience pretty much anywhere, but especially in government. Maybe think of it sometimes as starting a high-profile startup and running that. So what was that like?
Well, first of all, I think from a leadership standpoint and a value standpoint, those were two things that I understood. Those were very instrumental in my development as a manager, quite frankly, in the Walmart stores, both as my store in Marshfield, which was a smaller store, but I was the ultimate manager. And then I also spent several years when the Supercenter division started, where we had like the two stores in Springfield. I was a co-manager in those stores, and we had 450 employees in each of those buildings when I was there. So I was responsible for, half of those employees and half of the operation of the facility. So the training and the background and the history of working for a company like that, and the values that Sam Walton had bestowed upon us, was really helpful, quite frankly. In the like I said, in the leadership, in the managerial type part of the process, and then of course the ethical and the value part. But the side that I obviously would be weak on would be setting up the logistical side and the policy side. And I knew it was extremely critical that I had someone with me that could do that. And I think this is where fate, or maybe the Lord, kind of had his hand in things, because you were hired by Dr. Williams without my knowledge at the same time, and we came in together. And so we were able to form a partnership that what I really didn't have the experience to be able to do, you did. And then maybe my experience in managing people was a compliment to you.
We made a great team.
Oh, I think so.
I think we talked about that a lot.
Worked pretty well for 4 years, didn't it?
It did. So as you were developing the program, leading us through all that, you talked a bit about the values maybe in managing people and leading people and being responsible for all those people. Looking back on it, what do you think were some of your guiding lights in how the program itself would be formed and what it would become and what would be our focus?
Well, I think at the top of that list, there's no doubt that developing the relationships that we were able to do with the folks that were going to become the industry, and certainly with our team, number one, but then beyond that, the folks that were going to become the industry, and then the relationships that I had with people at the Capitol and people around, building this governmental entity that, quite frankly, could become another big bureaucracy. And I think it's important. We just came through an election with, all the rhetoric and so forth, but, building relationships and having those relationships available to be able to have discussions and do things with each other to get things done is important. And that's one of the negative sides of politics today. You've got people seem to forget about all that when they're running for an office. You can't come in with a blowtorch and blow things up. You have to get along. And so I think we were able to do that, and we just developed great relationships. And when we made a decision because of that, I think people responded in a positive manner generally.
Mm-hmm.
That was important.
Yeah. So you're kicking along medical marijuana program, and then adult use passes. And you were here for that with us in the beginning. Yeah. When that happened, we were full tilt into rulemaking based on the new law. Did you feel like there were any shifts in focus, either because of the law or your own perspective when that happened, that the considerations would be different?
That's a good question, and that's one that I've thought a lot about. I think when the medical amendment passed, and the product was still, federally illegal, and all the stigma around marijuana just that had been in place for 70 years or 80, we sort of had to almost have a change in the mindset, and we had to almost see that in society in general in our state. It would have been easy, when someone does something, or when you're around something, or you're around people that you don't like or whatever, it's easy to put up our hand and put up the stop sign and say, get away from me. I don't want to touch this. I don't want to be around this. I think if again, if you want to use your moral compass, is that what Jesus would have done, or would he have came in and sat down with those folks and tried to learn more about who they were and what they were, and I tried to kind of keep that as a perspective. Let's don't just automatically say marijuana is terrible. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to run the other way, because the fact is it's now part of the Missouri Constitution. Mm-hmm. So somebody's got to do this. And we could have had people in here that could have been extremely receptive and positive about it, or we could have had folks, I think, like you and I were. We were very, we try to look at everything objectively, and our number one goal was to follow the law. We had to follow the law, yeah. And whether it was good for Missouri or not good for Missouri, it didn't really matter. We're going to follow the law. And for me, what I learned along the way from a medical perspective was there could be some good from this. It gave some people some options, some alternative forms of medication when it came to particular ailments, mental or physical. We certainly know, if a veteran that served our country in Vietnam or Korea were dealing with things that maybe repercussions from that. If this is something that could help them deal with that, why not? Why how could we deny them that? Mm-hmm. So I just tried to always keep that perspective, mm-hmm. that it was the law. It's something we had to do. Somebody had to do it, and so all those people that were for it or against it would at least look at us and go, well, they're trying to provide something here per the Constitution that the voters and the taxpayers wanted.
Mm-hmm. And then when adult use passed, mm-hmm. Do you feel like by that point the landscape had kind of shifted a bit?
Yeah, mm-hmm. Thank you. That was the follow-up. So mm-hmm. in that 4-year period, things had, I think, started moving and shifting, and nationally, we saw a big movement with marijuana and the legalization across the states. And but then it came back to me personally and what I wanted to do. And quite frankly, if I'd have been a younger man, I might I might have hung around a while, but it was time for me to go home anyway. And it made a good excuse. It was a good exit. It was a good time to exit. Amendment 3 passed. Recreational's here. I'm out.
Well, for a
you
while,
take it, Amy.
Great.
I did my job.
You did. But then, for a while there, you were planning to stay as the outreach director and really focus on those relationships and communication. So what came up? Was that a tough decision to leave, or was it pretty obvious right choice?
I think, yeah, and I think that would have been probably okay. But I think then it just came back, boiled down to being home with the family. After 12 years being gone 3 and 4 nights a week, it was time for me to be home. Logan was getting ready to enter his final year of high school, and when I got elected to the House, was his first year of school. Do you think about it? 12 years,
Wow,
so I just felt like, it's time to be home. It's just a good time to move on. And quite frankly, another couple of years is probably all I would have wanted to have done anyway, because I would have got to that point in life that I definitely didn't want to be in a full-time gig like that. So,
well, from what I hear, you haven't particularly slowed down. What have you been doing?
Well, okay.
Where is he now?
We got another hour. Yeah. So, first of all, my wife is a business owner. She's had a preschool since 2006, and very successful premier facility in Marshfield. And so she's, had that on her plate all these years. Well, it happens to be part of of the old school campus in downtown Marshfield that was built initially in 1916, and certainly sections have been added to it. Well, the campus became available about the dates all run together, but I guess that would have been that fall, right? The fall before I left. It became available and to purchase. And so we were approached. She has had her preschool in that facility as a tenant. And when we were approached to purchase the facility, our initial thought was, well, we can't bite off this 58,000 square foot brick monster. We can't take that off and chew on it. But as the discussions developed and as things occurred and happened, why we made the decision to purchase it. So we had that sitting there on our plate as something to go home to, which was a big part of the decision. So since that time, we have done some extensive renovations on the building. We've revived the old school. We've taken 3 floors, and we've actually just about got through the whole building now, and getting a coat of paint on all the trim and all the walls to get some uniformity back, and just all those kinds of things, flooring, and we have several tenants in the building now, help us pay the bills, because we have some pretty good utility bills on the facility. So we've been working that as one project. My boys are both, very helpful. They have an arcade in the facility, and the arcade does really well, and so they're involved as well. But then in addition to that, I also have a little farm that we have some cattle, and I enjoy, dealing with that. And then I also still have an Amish crew that I'm responsible for to stay busy. And we do work for friends and family, and a lot from ourselves. We have them readily available. And then on top of that, as I was beginning my exit plan here at the state back in January of 23, I was talking to my cousin there in Marshfield, who happens to own Roast Ready Mix, which is a growing company. They've got 4 plants, 52 ready mix trucks, 20 transport trucks, 110 employees. And he said, I was telling him that I was coming home, and he said, well, good. He said, why don't you come work for me? I was like, I don't want to drive a ready mix truck. No, he said, I need a director of safety. We had, some accidents this past year, and I don't have anybody really doing compliance and dealing with the DNR and OSHA and dealing with all the safety stuff, training of employees. And I said, well, tell me more. And so we, sit down and worked it out. And I think the only request that I had is I really didn't want to work 40 hours a week. Well, that was okay. Had to work 30, though, to get my insurance. Okay. and I didn't want any employees, and I didn't want to answer to anybody but him. So he agreed to it, and it's been a great gig for me to supplement all the other things that I do.
Yeah, all the other things. I'd love to come see that school.
Yeah,
I hear I can get a massage, a donut, and go roller skating all in one swoop.
that's exactly right. And then a game of arcade, game of pinball. If you want to. Yeah,
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you miss us?
I do. I do miss you, and the team. It's we were a big family. We went through some things like not unlike families do. We took quite a bit of press, good or bad. We had a lot of press that we had to deal with during the formation of the medical marijuana program. Actually, if you think back, at the beginning, the press was pretty decent to us. A lot of interest. There was just a lot of interest in the state about what's this going to do? Is it going to be the worst thing that ever happened to Missouri? Actually, I think most people, I shouldn't say most, but there was a lot of people, especially in the outstate parts of Missouri, that thought it would be the worst thing that ever happened, But I think because of the faith that I had in you and our team, I knew no matter what, we were going to do it right. We were going to put the thing together right. And so we did. We are not, and we're not perfect, but we basically did the way it was supposed to be done. We had guidance. We had some direction. You and I are not the governor. We're not the director of health. We had people, that gave us guidance. And so it wasn't like we were out here, being mavericks, doing everything exactly the way you and I wanted to do it. There were guidelines we had to follow. Some of them maybe we didn't really agree with, but that's how it was, right? The Constitution told us, the amendment told us what we had to do. And then the rules and regs had to be developed, and there was input from others on that. So, but all in all, we came through something together, not unlike, a family or someone that might come through something together. That's a very high profile thing in society.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's hard not to miss people that you were around for 4 years like that.
Yeah. Well, we miss you too. Your leadership and encouragement meant a lot in those intense years. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Grateful for that.
Thank you. Me too.
Personally relied on that partnership quite a bit, and I'm glad that you're still around.
Well, I hope to be for a long time.
Yes.
And I hope to get up here more often. It's the other thing about coming back to Jeff City, I've still got lots of friends that the relationships I developed during my house years. So this gives me a good excuse to come up and see them too. And have dinner and keep that relationship. This fall, I think they're going to have a reunion for former representatives. And I think they hadn't done that for many, many years. First time they've done it in my time. So I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Catching up with people. And of course, Facebook and social media is, it's one of those quandaries or whatever you want to call it. It's probably not the right word, but it's the worst thing in the world, but it's also the best thing in the world as a tool to use to keep in touch with people.
Yeah.
So glad we have that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming to chat with us on this podcast. And speaking of podcasts, you didn't mention your project.
Well,
Go ahead and tell
I'm a humble
everybody.
guy. I'm a humble guy.
Tell everybody where they can see you when they miss you.
Well, thanks. I have a little podcast I started about a year ago. It's called Marshfield Old School Times. If you like history, then I think you would enjoy it, even though it's predominantly about Marshfield and Webster County. Everybody has a story. I don't care who you are. Everybody has a story, and everybody has a history. And, a human interest story, whether it's, the Queen of England story or whether it's the kid down the street that did something unique or whatever, everybody has one. So what I've found with this is it sort of started out as documenting history of our old school, people that went to school in Marshfield or in just growing up in Marshfield. It sort of started out like that, but it, things like anything kind of evolves and expands. And so we've had lots of folks on there that, in their 90s, and we've had local office holders or, the mayor. We've had people, that have an interesting story. Maybe they truly did something unique in their life and have been able to explain that, talk about that. So yeah, if you want to tune in, it's generally at 1:00 on Saturdays, but of course it's on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in Marshfield Old School Times, and they'll pop up, and then you'll see a date and names, and then just watch one and see what you think, especially some of those with the older folks, because their perspective of growing up in Marshfield, Missouri in the 30s or the 40s would be the same as someone that grew up probably in Jeff City, Missouri in the 30s or 40s, as far as what they did as children and what they did going to school. And, to hear one gentleman, Tom Farr Jr., talk about, when World War II started and he was a preteen, and, he became part of a little group of boys that would run around town and deliver messages and stories or information to people. They were assigned a certain street in the neighborhood, and they had to share information about what was going on, because, all you had was radio, and but yet there would be local, I want to use the word Civil Air Patrol kids, but that wasn't really the right name. But, they had to be a part of that, and they were all kind of sanctioned by the government. I didn't heard about that before. But were we about out of time?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I had one other real quick story, but one of my most interesting stories was a 98-year-old lady, Pat Abbott, who had a ladies' clothing store on the square for 50 years. Still alive, still doing well. I saw her yesterday, as a matter of fact. But as part of the Greatest Generation, she was a senior in high school at Marshfield in 1944. Her husband, her boyfriend, was from Conway, 3 years older, was going to SBU on a basketball scholarship, Southwest Baptist, which was a 2-year college back then. And he gets his draft orders. Uncle Sam calls. The war's ramping up in the Pacific. So they're dating. It's September. She just turned 17 and just begins her senior year. And they have to make a decision whether they're going to get married or they're going to wait for after his 2-year service. Well, they decide to get married. So they spend Saturday night, Sunday night together. He ships out on Monday morning. She doesn't see him again for 8 months. And that 8-month visit, her daddy put her on a train, Springfield, Missouri, to San Francisco through Kansas City. She doesn't know anybody. She's 17. She just had graduated. And another Marshfield military guy was out there, a friend, and he received her, took her to a hotel, found them a room. Her and Bob got to spend 2 nights together because he comes in for the weekend. Spend 2 nights. She gets back on the train, comes back home. He goes back out to sea. She doesn't see him for another 8 or 9 months. That's the Greatest Generation. Those kind of stories intrigue me.
That's great.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was great talking with you. This was fun. And I know we'll talk soon, and maybe we'll bring you back.
I'll come back anytime. And you can come down and be on my show. We'll talk about marijuana in Missouri.
Oh, there's some history. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy.
It's about that time. Let's get into the No Zone. Today, Lindsey's going to tell us about Metric. Take it away, Lindsey.
Thank you, Shayna. This month, we're going to learn about Metric. What is Metric? Metric stands for Marijuana Enforcement, Tracking, Reporting, and Compliance. Metric is a supply chain software that provides end-to-end visibility of a final marijuana product's life cycle. In Missouri, Metric is the statewide track and trace system that each licensee shall use as its official system of record to track marijuana product from seed or immature plant stage until the product is either purchased by a consumer, qualifying patient, primary caregiver, expended during testing, or destroyed. So it's really tracking everything that happens to this product in its life cycle. Why implement a statewide track and trace system? Well, DCR is constitutionally required to implement a system capable of tracking marijuana from either seed or immature plant stage until the marijuana or marijuana-infused product is sold to an end user to ensure that no marijuana grown by a licensee with cultivation authority or a licensee with manufacturing authority is sold or otherwise transferred to an end user except by a licensee with a sale or distribution authority. So in addition to that, DCR is also constitutionally required to certify all commercially available tracking systems that are compliant with its tracking standards and issue standards for the creation or use of other systems by licensees. DCR refers to these additional certified entities as seed-to-sale tracking systems, and their standards are actually listed in rule. So these seed-to-sale systems are connected to Metric through an open application programming interface, or API connection. And this is designed to integrate with the third-party seed-to-sale systems and tracks everything from inventory management systems to transportation manifests, test results, and even point-of-sale data. These systems are really designed to ensure that compliance updates can be automated or uploaded with licensee minimal effort, easing the time and resources demanded of track and trace compliance. One of the biggest questions, how does it work? Metric's track and trace technology is a process that uses a combination of hardware, software to track and trace movement of goods or people. Licensees can use this information to monitor and optimize supply chains as well as prevent theft or other losses. Metric designed the track and trace based on radio frequency identification tags. So these are like these little RFID tags. That's kind of what everyone calls them, is an RFID tag. These tags are attached to the products or containers, and they can actually emit a signal that can be detected by special readers if it's leveraged by the licensee or even DCR. So you can actually go through areas and check the tags for certain compliance things. It'll actually return information to you. And so you can use that information to kind of analyze the health of your inventory. The licensed users upload and report every action impacting the status of one of these RFID tags. So when plants are harvested and packaged or combined with other plants in production of oils, edibles, concentrates, the origin, test results, handling, and the chain of custody information is visible and traceable. Metric is an essential part of helping licensees and DCR assess final marijuana product for health and safety. So, for example, an observable potential health and safety concern in Metric is when marijuana product is packaged and the weight or count is adjusted after that final marijuana product testing has occurred. So that is an actionable insight that not only DCR can use, but licensees can use to actually assess not only help assess the health of their business as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like keep everybody on the up and up.
Yeah.
So metric is a small word with an acronym that touches essentially every part of the industry, whether we realize it or not. Is that fair to say?
That is very fair to say. So everything from the initial concept of the plant all the way through has some sort of identifying, a unique identifier that can help be used to connect it to other actions in the system as it moves along.
That is very cool. So metric is a really important part of everybody's role here within the industry. If anyone wants to know more about metric, what's the best way for them to find out?
Well, there's a couple different avenues you can take to find out more about Metric. There is their official website, metric.com, and that's metric spelled METRC, not like the metric system. And if you'd like to reach out to the division to learn more about Metric, feel free to reach out to cannabis development at health.mo.gov. And that'll get you to the program development unit here, and they'll be able to answer any questions you may have.
That's awesome. Thanks, Lindsey.
Thanks.
So now it's time to give you some updates on some deadlines that are coming up. Research license listening sessions. We've had 2 of those this past summer. Really great turnout, really great information. And we will continue to keep you updated. Like Shayna had said earlier on our Gov delivery, if you haven't signed up for that, there's a special topic just for that. So if you're interested in learning about or hearing about what is going on with research licenses, check that out.
Very exciting. We do have a few packaging and labeling reminders as well. Beginning September 1st, 2024, just a reminder, all product that's produced at a licensed facility must be packaged in compliant packaging. And then on November 1st, 2024, dispensary licensees may not sell any marijuana product that does not have an approved item approval number on the label as required by rule.
For more information on packaging and labeling, you can reach out to the packaging and labeling unit or check out our website at cannabis.mo.gov. I'm sure Justin and his crew would be glad to help you out with those last minute questions, but don't wait until August 29th, please.
Right. Go ahead and send those questions in now so we can get ahead of it before our deadlines.
Well, I just want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in today. We've missed you so much, and it's so good to be back, especially working with Shayna and Brad again and being back in the room together. And we have new microphones, and it's been super fun.
I was going to say I've missed the mic, but these are new, so it's good to be back.
We are always looking for ideas on what our listeners would like to hear.
Yes, and if there's something you want to hear about, send us an email at dcrc@health.mo.gov.
Keep up to date between episodes. There are several ways to stay informed. Subscribe to our email list to receive emails from DCR on various topics and customized to your needs. Go to cannabis.mo.gov and click on Join Our Email List under Contact Information.
The Cannabis Connection newsletter is published quarterly and is your informational link to Missouri's Division of Cannabis Regulation.
We also have this podcast, and we are going to be here monthly, like we said, and you can find all of this information at cannabis.mo.gov.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to DCR Out Loud.
We will see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
This podcast content is intended for adults over the age of 21 years old and is best to be used for informational purposes only. The content does not constitute official compliance or regulatory guidance. The department and author assumes no responsibility or liability for any errors or omissions in the content of this podcast. The information contained in this podcast is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness. Cannabis licensees should consult with their assigned compliance officer for rules and regulations specific to their facility. The content is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition and should not be relied on for any medical purposes. Patients and the public should consult with their healthcare providers about medical-related questions and the impact of cannabis on health. If you believe you are having a medical emergency, call emergency services. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed herein are those of the authors, presenters, and do not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by, the U.S. government, Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, or the government of the state of Missouri.